New home builders are desperately making price reductions here in Phoenix in order to keep the buyers that they have under contract and attract new ones. People like you. In other words, the homebuilder meltdown party is just getting started, and your personal attendance is hereby requested by every single builder across the Phoenix Metro. And I'm going to prove it to you. I'm going to tell you a true story about a guy who's caught up in this whole drama. He's my client. His name's Dave. Now, Dave and I initially connected after Dave was doing some research online looking for an agent to represent him before he went in and started working with the home builder. He knew where he wanted to buy. He just didn't want to go in alone without having a representative. So he did his research online, and he found out that I had 8+ years experience selling new homes for the big builders and local builders. In other words, I've sold hundreds of homes while working on staff for these various builders. So I think in Dave's mind, maybe it was kind of like somebody who was getting audited by the IRS. If you could find a CPA who used to work for the IRS, having that inside track might be helpful, but I digress. Dave and I started talking back in November 2021, and that's when he shared with me that he had already found the community where he wanted to buy a home. We got on that builder's wait list, and what did we do? Just like the list says, we waited. We waited through the rest of November and December and January, and finally in February, the happy moment came. And there's something I want you to file away in the back of your mind. At the time when Dave and I started talking, interest rates were hovering between the upper 2s and lower 3 percentile range. Just file that away for reference later on. One more thing. While Dave and I were waiting to go under contract, we were asking the salesperson constantly, what's the price going to be? And we're being told it could be in the mid 4s, it could be in the low 5s. We just weren't sure. So when we go in to write the contract, they shared with us that they'd picked the price of $491,000. We thought that was pretty good, being that it wasn't in the 5s. So we wrote the contract, set the design center appointment, everybody's happy, and then the fun really starts. One of the things that I'd like to point out now is that the home builders are there to make money. That's their job, that's their goal. So one of the things they do is they come up with a sales strategy, and something that's used very commonly is the home builders will do what they call priming the pump when they start a subdivision. In other words, they're willing to sell a few homes at a lower price than they really need to sell all the rest of the homes at in order to get things rolling. When people walk into that sales office, the company realizes that the more little red stickers that say sold on the available lots, the more urgency that creates. So they'll sell a few homes at a lower price, and that's how Dave and I were able to get that price. Shortly after that, the builder starts raising the price. The first price increase was $20,000, and that came just within 1 week of us signing the contract. And the way things were in the market, they figured that they could keep on doing that. So every few days, every week, every couple weeks, we'd see a $5,000 increase. We'd see a $10,000 increase. We'd see another $20,000 increase until ultimately they were able to get the price up to $572,000, an $80,000 increase in price in just 8 weeks. My buyer, Dave, was elated. His house hadn't even started being built yet, and he had $81,000 worth of equity. But this is when the fun starts. We're just getting started, guys. Wait till you see what happens next. All of a sudden, we start taking price drops. We weren't sure why, but the first price drop was $11,000. And that took place in early April. And then by April 24th, they had dropped the price another $10,000. So now we're down $21,000 total, down to $551,000 and some change. And then in May, we took a couple of $5,000 price drops, so we got down to $585,000. $441,000. Next, things just keep on going, and it's insanity. Having sold new homes for almost 10 years, I'd never seen anything like it. Oftentimes, when sales are sluggish, builders will do things like they'll throw in front yard landscaping. They might include ceiling fans or an appliance package or a gourmet kitchen, something like that. But the last thing they want to do is tinker with the price because they don't want to upset the people that are already under contract just to bring in new buyers. But this builder is hacking away at the price until on May 13th, they had got the price all the way down to $511,000. That's when Dave comes to me and he says, "Hey, John, if these guys get the price below my base price, I don't know if I want to buy the home from them. I don't know if I'm comfortable with that. Everybody else is going to get the home cheaper than I did." And that's when I said, "Dave, let's ask them for a letter that guarantees your position. And it'll just work like this. It'll just basically say that if the price goes down below what Dave paid for it, wherever they go to, they're going to honor that base price for Dave." So then on May 15th, we got the letter that we wanted. So Dave knew his position was secured. By the end of June, they had taken enough price drops to bring the price down to $441,000 and some change. That's a whopping difference from high to low of $131,000. And mind you, keep in mind, this started at $491, it traveled up to $572, and now is all the way down to $441,000. Couldn't believe it, but that was reality for this builder at this subdivision. Back to interest rates. Remember I told you to file that away? Well, when we went under contract, rates were still in the threes. So back in February, rates were in the threes, albeit the upper threes. But then by the time that all these price decreases had taken effect, interest rates had eclipsed 6%. So that was in June. Interest rates were up to 6%. So interest rates had changed drastically. Back in February, interest rates were still in the 3 percentile range, and by June, they had reached all the way up into the sixes. A move that drastic hasn't happened since the 1980s, so it had been more than 50 years since rates have jumped that drastically. And was this impacting the builders big time? That's why these guys were monkeying with the price so much. That's why, even though they didn't want to have to drop the price, they did it. When it comes to picking the price, it's critical to get it right, or at least close to right out of the gate. And this reminds me of a saying that an old real estate guy named Bob Luffler told me lots of years ago. He said that when you pick the price, you're not picking how much you're going to get. You're just picking how long you're going to wait to get what you're going to get anyhow. Now, let me say that another way. He said, when you pick the price, you're not picking how much you're going to get. You're just picking how long you're going to wait to get what you're going to get anyhow. And I don't care how many times you tell that to a home builder, they think they know better. And that's how they get themselves into trouble like they did here. Now, there's a lot that goes into this pricing stuff when the builders are trying to figure out where they should be price-wise. One of them is material costs. Another one is labor costs. Another one is inflation. Now, when it comes to material costs, one of the things we can look at is an article that Bob Villa had written back in June this year. He was talking about where lumber prices had been in 2020 through 2021, where they had raised them so much that the average home had increased in cost to build by almost $20,000, $18,600 and some change. Now, since that time, lumber prices have receded a little bit. Some of the other costs, like labor costs, have not changed that much, so the builders are still dealing with that. So all this stuff together makes it really difficult for builders to predict where they need to be on price. They've got to deal with building material costs, tradesman shortages, interest rate, inventory, inflation, and the whole thing when they pick that price. This is why pricing homes for a home builder is such tricky business. All these moving pieces make it really difficult to nail down that perfect price. And think about this. Let's say somebody comes in and they get qualified to build a $500,000 home based on an interest rate of 3 or 4%. And then the economy does something really kooky that it hasn't done in 50 years. Interest rates soar up by 3 points. Now it could be that that home builder has 80% of their buyers who they have homes under construction for. They don't even qualify anymore because their payment has moved so much that they can no longer afford the home. So this really puts the builder in a precarious position. What will they do if that happens? They're going to do what anybody would do who has something to sell. They're going to drop the price until they get those homes sold, and they're going to hope to salvage some of the contracts that they've already written. Pretty soon, really soon, these home builders are going to be hosting the biggest and the baddest competition that our Phoenix Metro has seen in decades. These aggressive home builder price reductions might trigger a massive meltdown, which means big time opportunity for people like you if you're in the market to buy a new home here in Phoenix. And my advice is to be patient, be selective. You're finally in the driver's seat. It hasn't been that way for a long time. When you walk into a home sales office right now, I don't care what they say or what they do, they know that you've got all the power. Finally, the tables are starting to turn, right? And now they got to play by some of your rules. If you have any comments on what's going on with these new home builders, I'd love for you to say so below. And I'd love to hear your guess on where you think interest rates will be 3 months from now. I'm John Cunningham with eXp Realty. See ya.